Britain's most decorated Olympian, but today Sir Bradley Wiggins was effectively accused of cheating. MPs alleging the country's first Tour de France winner used asthma drugs to boost performance, and not just for medical need. In his first interview for 18 months, Wiggins came out fighting, telling me he'd done nothing wrong.
The report by the DCMS Select Committee says that you crossed the ethical line. Is that fair? Did you?
No, we didn't. Not any time during my career did we cross the ethical line. As I've said before, I had a medical condition that I went to a doctor. This has been being treated since back in 2003 when I was diagnosed with it, through the doctors at British Cycling at that time. This was the treatment that I'd been prescribed for that particular occasion, which was, 7 years ago now, and under specialist supervision as well. And in place of the rules of that time, which you were allowed to apply for use for this medication.
But it was performance enhancing, right? Triamcinolone.
Well, it wasn't performance enhancing in the sense that for me it was a case of I had this problem, I'd have asthma attacks, I'd have problems with breathing that were flared up through pollen season. And this was a case of, this was an anti-inflammatory drug that was taken in order to prevent that happening so I could compete on the same level as I'd competed all year and with my rivals. So this wasn't a drug that was, this wasn't a medication that was abused in order to gain an advantage.
That's not what your former coach Shane Sutton says. He says that your use of that drug was, quote, unethical.
Yeah, that hurts me actually. Shane knows around that time exactly what and why I was taking that medication, my asthma inhalers, that I'd been on throughout my career. I'd been to see, I complained of these problems during the Dauphiné, I complained for these problems after the Dauphiné. I went to see a specialist outside of the team in order to gain, see what we could do, what would I be able to do in order to combat this, or at least prevent it from happening so I could compete at the highest level at the peak of the season when I'd worked to that point. So, that really hurts me that someone like Shane would say that, because...
So he's lying then, is he, Shane Sutton? Or is he just twisting the facts? How would you describe what he's doing there?
I don't know what his motivation is. That's all I'll say.
But you're clear, he's wrong. It wasn't unethical.
I'm a rider riding for Team Sky, the biggest team in the world at that point. I'm paid as the team leader. And as most riders in any sports team, not just cycling, do, if you've got niggles, problems, knee injury, common colds, this, that and the other, you go to the doctor in the team. Well, constantly, they were hypochondriacs as athletes. It's especially coming to the height of the season, the biggest race of the year, whatever it's the Olympic Games or the Tour de France. So, it was completely under medical need, and it was, this whole thing has just been, a complete mess of innuendo and rumour, and nothing's been substantiated, and it's just, I'm having to deal with the fallout of that now.
The committee, come on.
Yeah, which is almost impossible. How do I do it? There've been no medical records or anything to back that up or substantiate what's been said or what hasn't been said. So I'm kind of left in the middle here now, trying to pick up the pieces.
Do you understand why there's such suspicion, though, Brad? I mean,
you
don't make any reference to injections in your book. You say you don't have injections. Yeah. You don't make any reference in your book to being ill, which, by all accounts, this very powerful corticosteroid should only be used when you're very, very ill. No medical records. It all adds up to a cloud of suspicion. Do you understand why people now have doubts?
No, I understand the way this whole thing has played out over the last 18 months. It's been a long old process. I've not been able to speak until this point because we've had a legal investigation going on with UCAD. I didn't want to jeopardise that because I was fighting for my life. I'm trying, I've got a malicious allegation made by an anonymous source to start with, and I've got to now somehow feed my way through. I acted as a witness to the UCAD investigation. That was all I was told I was. Went in, spoke to him. This one, the report, I've not heard anything since this thing started, and at the 11th hour last week I was asked if I'd like to comment on it. I was asked 5 questions. None of the questions were of the current allegations that have been made or findings that have been made. 1.5 of the answers was published in the report. Now I'd like to ask the question, if I'm at least going to be accused of something, the first time I've been aware of being accused of anything was today. At least I now know what I'm being accused of. Because the last 18 months has all been dilly-dallying about, innuendo. No one's actually said, for legal reasons, because they can't, because it's libelous. Because now we've got to the stage where parliamentary, they've used parliamentary to make it legal. And
parliamentary privilege.
Parliamentary privilege, being able to say it without any repercussions. And now they're of the opinion that this is what we're doing. So I've got no comeback on this. I can't. This is now taken as fact. I've now got to prove that this is wrong.
Just to deal with this point, why this discrepancy between what's in your book about being well, and there's no reference to being really
yeah,
well,
well, I've described
no
it. Yeah. I mean, I've described that in the past. I mean, the landscape at the time, I'd won everything that season. I was doing a book which was done in 3 or 4 days with a ghostwriter, and I've talked about, going into detail of medical. I'm still competing at the highest level at this point here. I've discussed about showing weakness to your opponents and things like that by talking about. I have talked about my asthma before. I was on the front of Asthma UK magazine back in 2004 after the Olympic Games, talking about the problems that I'd suffered over the years with that. Now,
but what about the timing, Brad? If this was a genuine illness and you had to take something for it when it arose, why this convenient timing just before these 3 major races? That as well also
because of
adds to the suspicion.
Because of the type of grass pollen that I was allergic to. It was around this period. So the grass pollen goes in seasons, and this particular strain of grass pollen I was allergic to, it was at a heightened period during June and July, as I said that. And I answered the questions of Will Fotheringham a year ago when I had a say on it when this initially came out. Well, why didn't you take it in 2016? Why didn't you take it? Because I was racing on the track. We were indoors. I didn't have these problems. These problems flared up riding through fields, and we were riding for 3 weeks at a time through France. This was, as I said to you before, it was the biggest race of the year. I'd won everything that season. I wasn't going to jeopardise the work we put into that stage.
Brad, can you just clarify one thing? In 2016, you appear to have, when been asked by The Guardian whether you ever took triamcinolone out of competition, to answer that you didn't. And yet in the report we hear now that you have acknowledged that you did indeed take triamcinolone out of competition. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, I never used it in competition without a TUE. So until I had that document and that piece of paper that said I was authorised to take it, it was never took. Out of competition, I had an injection after the 2013 Giro d'Italia, where I came out with a knee problem, and I had an injection into the knee socket to solve that problem. But then under the rules at that time, you couldn't race for 2 weeks, so I didn't race for 2 months after that until the Tour of Poland.
So you have taken it out of competition on one occasion?
Yes.
But in the report it says there's a suggestion that you've taken it as many as 9 times in 4 years. How do you explain that?
Yeah, now this, I don't know where that's come from. I really would like to know. This is an anonymous source. This is an anonymous person that has said this.
Doesn't mean it's wrong though. You're saying this is a lie.
Absolutely, I refute that 100%. This is malicious. This is a direct. This is someone trying to smear me.
Do you know who it is?
I'd love to know who it is, because I think it would answer a lot of questions. It's flagged. It's in one paragraph in the report and never mentioned again. Also, if that was the case, why isn't this evidence or this piece of information come to light under the legal investigation with UCAD? This is the first time it's come to light, and it seems very odd that it's come to light in this parliamentary hearing and not before now.
The MPs say, we believe this powerful corticosteroid was used to prepare you for the Tour de France, the purpose not to treat medical need, but to improve power to weight ratio ahead of the race. You benefited, they say, from the performance enhancing qualities of the drug during the race.
But what do they base that on?
Well, is it true?
Well, it's not true at all, no. As I've said to you, there was medical need for it. This was about bringing me back to a level playing field so I can compete at the highest level I'd done all season up to that point.
Most people, almost everybody, seems to agree that triamcinolone is also performance enhancing. Do you not accept that there must be a performance enhancing element to using that drug? We know that it means that you shed weight without loss of power.
Yeah, but used a lot of that period was about me maintaining weight, so it certainly wasn't used. I was already at race weight at the Dauphiné. Why would I jeopardise that by taking more? I mean, this was about me having a problem, going to the team doctors, flagging this problem, and then them seeking a way of treating it. It wasn't, under no circumstances throughout my career was this ever used or suggested or that it would be a performance enhancing. It wasn't about that.
You must have heard the noise around
Of course,
the drug
yeah.
from other riders, and
Of
therefore
course.
did you not
I'd been involved in cycling my whole life.
Indeed, so you knew there was a risk in taking it, that it could
Well,
be
the rules
seen
at the
as-
time, under the, in the application of a TUE, this isn't us going into a chemist and saying, I'll have that. There was a process to go through. You go and see a specialist, you have a specialist report, it goes to the UCI. They then decide, their panel decide whether you're granted this TUE or not. Until that application comes back and I'm granted it, it's like, I can take that medication.
But they quote a well-placed, well-respected, but anonymous source, the committee, who tells them that a small group of riders, including yourself, all used corticosteroids to lean down in preparation for races. Is that not true?
No, not at all.
100% not true?
100% not true. That's a complete fabricated, malicious allegation, and I don't know what the motive is behind that. A small group of riders, yeah, I mean, what's criminal about training in a small group of riders? We were the Tour de France team. We'd go and train at altitude. Most teams do that. They still do that today.
On reflection, do you regret taking the drug now?
I mean, it's 7 years ago. That was the treatment at that time prescribed for that.
You took it in 11,
12, 13. Yeah. So that were the rules at the time that you were permitted to take that drug, and I was granted permission to do that by the governing bodies at that time.
On reflection, though.
Well, it's easy to think now with cognitive bias and everything and all this that has happened now, it's easy to sit here and go, yeah, I regret it. I mean, it's happened. I can't turn the clock back.
Would you have won without it? Tour de France in 2020?
Well, had I had an asthma attack? No, probably not. No.
So sitting here now, Sir Brad, you can categorically say that you didn't cheat?
100%.
You didn't abuse the TUE system?
Never throughout my career, no. I worked and had the passion I've had for this sport for 15, 20 years. You got jerseys, I'm doing a book, I've been writing a book in here all morning about the love of the sport. To do that to the sport, I mean, it's just absurd. These allegations, I mean, it's the worst thing to be accused of, I've said that before, but it's also the hardest thing to prove you haven't done, because we're not dealing in a legal system. I'd have had more rights if I'd murdered someone in this process. I've been gagged for the last 18 months because there was a legal investigation going on, so I couldn't say anything. Then I was still waiting on this DCMS report. I've never been asked, or these allegations have never been put to me before until now. I've only found out today what I'm actually being accused of. I mean, the whole jiffy bag thing was just a shambles.
What was in the jiffy bag?
God knows.
Should
Your
you
guess
know?
is as good as mine.
You're a world-class athlete.
Right, but
Should
can I,
you know
Dan,
this?
let me just tell you something. I was doing the Dauphiné. I was leading the Dauphiné. I won the Dauphiné. The first time I became aware of a package was when the Daily Mail contacted me in October of 2016. But the way it's reported, or the way it has been reported, it's as if I've ordered this package and I'm waiting for DHL to deliver it to me. And I've got a sign for it, thanks for the medical package. I don't know. I don't run the team. I don't run the logistics of the team. I was busy doing my job, what I was paid to do. Now, the innuendo of that allegation was that there was an injection done in the back of the bus in front of 12 other people that no one else mysteriously didn't see. I mean, we would have been breaking the rules had we done that.
Was there no injection then?
No, absolutely not. We travelled 6 hours later to Sestriere on a training camp at high altitude where the doctor came and I was treated that evening with Flumicil in a nebulizer. But that story would have had no weight had someone an anonymous source again come along and just said, I saw Brad being injected in the back of the bus. We've got a story on our hands. I mean, at that point then, I can't comment on it because it becomes, it's under investigation. UCAD told me in September, I had a meeting with them, that they opened the investigation on the back of the Daily Mail article with regards to the package. Now, once that got open, that investigation, I'm gagged then for legal reasons until I've done I've acted as a witness to them, I've given all the information, I've told them all this.
But there was an administering of something, though, that evening on the bus?
In Sestriere, out of competition.
Not on
the
the
bus. Not on the bus. Because we're still tidying up. I was doing podium, I was doing press, I was doing dope control. I just won the race. We were going to a training camp then, from there in Sestriere for 1 week after that, which we all travelled to from La Toussière to Sestriere, 3-hour drive, 2.5 hour drive, whatever it is. The doctor came with us to Sestriere to then treat the riders, whatever they needed, any niggles.
Which doctor was that?
Dr. Freeman.
So why didn't you say this before then? There was nothing. Why didn't you say before there was nothing administered that evening?
Before when?
Well, until now.
I haven't been able to say anything because there was an investigation going on based on that package and the Daily Mail article that was written about that package. So UKAD opened the investigation based on the back of that Daily Mail article. Matt Lawton asked me those questions before he wrote the article, and I said exactly what I've said to you. I knew nothing about the package until you have now told me it. I didn't know the contents of it. I didn't even know there was a package until I was asked about it. And then obviously since that investigation was open, which took 12 months to conclude, 13 months to conclude, I couldn't, for not wanting to jeopardise the investigation that was going on.
So what happened to the... I believe you've told the committee that you don't know what was in the package.
Well, I don't. I guess it's as good as mine. I didn't even know if there was a package.
You don't even know if there was a package? Okay.
I mean, it's become such a... I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. It's become such a furore and a mess.
But we've been told...
And obviously what didn't help was all the things that came with the start of that package. You know, people trying to...
Sure, yeah.
You know, it's been just pouring petrol on it. Someone was supposed to be somewhere else. Someone was supposed to be here. I mean, it's...
Doesn't look good, does it?
No, of course it doesn't. It's ludicrous.
Isn't that because it was triamcinolone and you were injected with it that evening?
Well, not on me. At the end of the day, the butt stops for me. You know, I'm the athlete here. I've just won the biggest pre-tour race. I'm not going to break the rules by injecting. When 2 weeks later, I had a piece of paper to say I could do it legally. So that's, no rules were broken.
So there was a TUE applied for?
Not at that point, no. No.
At the end of May, there was an application for a TUE for triamcinolone. It wasn't granted until...
Yeah, it wasn't granted till...
When did you have that one then?
Which one?
The one that was applied for at that time?
It was 6 days before the Tour de France. I mean, had I had that injection when the innuendo was that I did, I won the National Road Race the week later. It would have shown in my urine at the National Road Race. I got tested there. So I would have been breaking the rules and tested positive.
So they go to the trouble of bringing Flumicil, a mere decongestant, that they could have bought locally all the way over from Manchester via Simon Cope, which you were then given the following day.
That evening in Sestriere.
Yeah, the following evening.
The same evening, the day the race finished.
My apologies, got it.
We then drove to Sestriere. Dr. Freeman came to Sestriere. We were all then treated. Then rather than trying to, everyone's scrabbling around at the end of the race, getting a bag, suitcases. People are going different directions.
But you're saying you don't know that that was what was in this so-called package?
Well, I don't know. I can only go on what I've been told or what people have told me. Apparently it was for me. Well, I don't know. Could have been for anyone, but apparently it was for me. The anonymous source said it was for me. So I don't know. I mean, I can only tell you, if it did have triamcinolone in it, it didn't go in my backside, which is what's being suggested, because it would have shown in my urine at the National Road Race.
So you had that injection of triamcinolone at a later stage before the...
Yes.
This is important. Just to get
once I had the certification from WADA and the UCI that I was able to take it, it was then taken and administered.
Why do you think Sky got themselves into such a pickle with these erroneous explanations?
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Maybe it was the lack of records, who knows? I don't know. I'm obviously following that whole scenario from when it evolved, and it was just snowballing and it was one hiccup after another. I just don't know what... I mean, I'm the athlete and the rider, and all I could control at that time was the medical records I had, which were shown to UKAD, presented to them, and that's it. That's all I've got to go on. I can't account for what was, who took what where, who, you know, what was in it. I mean, it's just, they've admitted fault for that, you know. I think if that's the worst thing they've done, then, but, you know, all the speculation and sensationalism that's come out of that has been way off.
Yeah, but it's not just the lack of medical records, bad as that is it? It's the fact that the explanations given initially were wrong. It's the fact that Dr. Freeman's laptop was nicked on holiday in Greece. It's the fact that he doesn't make the committee hearing because he's ill. I mean, all these things add up, and people reach their own conclusions, which is simply that package contained triamcinolone, and you had it injected.
And that all becomes fact until, you know, and obviously the want to be able to... I mean, a year ago I was on Soccer AM, and I said, you know, hopefully I'll have my say. So a year on, I'm just having my first say on it. You know, I mean, it's just, I can only control, in that whole period, this whole madness you know, kind of this mad pack outside waving pitchforks, and that is just all I could control was what I could control. And I'm trying to cooperate with UCAD on what they're hoping that they would wrap that up pretty quickly so I can move on with my life. And here we are still in March of 2018, and this report's come out, and it's left us in a worse position because we've had a legal case already which has been wrapped up, and now this is just of the opinion. It's just put it out there, and now I've got to deal with this. There's nothing to substantiate it. There's nothing to back it up. These anonymous sources. I mean, it's ludicrous. And will we ever know? Will we ever know who this source is or the motivation behind it? I mean, what do we do now? Where do we go from here? I'm now going to try and do a series of interviews and just try and explain through this now, piece by piece.
So just so we're clear, Brad, that package, as far as you're concerned, contained Flumicil because that's what you were given that evening?
No, let me clarify this.
Let's just make it clear, it's a crucial element.
That package, as we've been told in the Houses of Parliament, contained Flumicil. I had Flumicil that night. Whether it came out of that package or not, maybe it did. If they were short of it and they needed more brought out, then maybe, yeah. I was on Flumicil that whole week. With the problems I had with pollen allergy, I had mucus on my chest, blocked nose and everything, and I was using that through a nebulizer to break down the mucus to get this phlegm off my chest. Whether it had anything else in the package, I don't know. Only a select few people will know exactly what was in that package. I don't know. I didn't order it. It wasn't delivered to me as is reported. So my guess is, you know, I'm just in the same of what I've seen in the press or in the House of Parliament. I can't categorically say, yes, it did have this. I don't know. I know what I was treated with, and I know what I did and didn't do at the end of that race. And as I told the UCAD investigation, you know, this whole thing about being treated at the back of the bus, someone supposedly saw it. But what about the other 12 riders on the bus that were all getting showered and changed and getting their suitcases ready? And, you know, it's just, I mean, it was just complete fabrication and malicious as well. I mean, it was a deliberate, malicious allegation to create this, what it's done. And now I'm having to prove a negative, which is almost impossible.
Even if there's been no cheating, do you accept, you must accept, that the standards by which Team Sky moulded themselves on and committed to have been breached? The lack of medical records,
well,
the lack of certainty, the wrong explanations, it doesn't equate to what that team was.
There's a lot of this could have been solved very early on with clear records, clear record keeping, this, that and the other. Now, I'm not in control of that. I'm doing my job as best as I can. I'm doing what's asked of me, you know, logging my training, putting it on an internet page for people to see it and see what I'm actually doing. And everything else around me, you know, the transportation of medical products or this, that and the other, I'm not sat there thinking, you know, I'll ask the question of this, you know, ensuring that everyone's doing the job. I think it's just a sign of the times as well. I mean, this is back in 2011 at the initial thing with this package, year 2 of Team Sky. I mean, just carnage, disorganisation in the sense that BC employees coming over with this, that and the other, and being in the velodrome for, you know, this.
But this was meant to be, you know, the marginal gains team, you know, thoroughness, attention to detail. It doesn't add up.
Well, no, it doesn't.
It was a myth, wasn't it, that?
No. Well, I don't think it is now. I think this is a well-oiled ship now, from what I understand. I don't know. I've not been in the team for 3 years.
Well, maybe Chris Froome will disagree. It's a well-oiled ship.
Well, that's a whole different. But I mean, I went to a thing in Nice last year with Rafa, and the ex-team chef was there, Henrik, was giving a talk and a Q&A, and he was saying that now that there's a WhatsApp group and they have to see what's left on the table after they've cooked a meal, and there's this much rice, this much pasta, and they can work out from that how much carbs everyone's had or what they haven't had. First thing I said, it was a shame they couldn't keep a bloody record of what was in this package that went out. You know, because we wouldn't be here now from the package point of view. There wouldn't have been an investigation. It wouldn't have been a Daily Mail article. We would have just been able to nip it in the bud early. But
what do you suspect lies behind what you describe as this malicious allegation? Is it jealousy?
Well, I don't know.
Is it vendetta?
I don't know. That's what really worries me at the moment, is the motive behind this, the timing of it. You know, the timing of a lot of other things that were happening at British Cycling and at Team Sky at that time. Me coming to the end of my career. I mean, it's, you know, I'm trying to be in retirement and do other things with my life, and I'm having to, you know, just the effect it's had, the widespread effect on the family is just, it's horrific, and I'm going to have to, I don't know how I'm going to pick the pieces up with the kids and stuff, and I'm left to do that, as well as trying to, you know, keep my, you know, salvage my reputation from this. I mean, it's just, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
You described it as a living hell a few months ago in a statement.
Yeah, and I got criticised for saying that. Why? I mean, the effect it's had on my family, that was a living hell. Yeah, I understand I have to answer the questions and that, which I wasn't able to do up to that point. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's that really. I mean, I wish I could sit here now and say, I can show you this, I can show you this, I can show you this, but obviously we can't do that, and I can't. I can only tell you what I know from that time on recall and everything, and it's what I told UCAD, and I wasn't even given the opportunity to tell the parliamentary hearing. So it's, you know, I mean, I still think that these allegations, well, let's substantiate, show us the new evidence that you've got, because it's funny that this has never come to light before. During a legal investigation, what it could have done, and we could have been sanctioned if that was the case, if that was found. That wasn't. They cited lack of evidence in the UCAD inquiry. So where's this come from? And this you know, being able to remain anonymous. It's just.
But it's not UCAD's fault, is it?
No, it's not UCAD's
medical
fault.
records weren't
No,
checked.
it's not UCAD's fault.
That's what you'd expect of a professional road racing team.
UCAD were doing what they had to do.
Yeah, but you're clear that failure to keep basic medical records was down to sloppiness rather than the other interpretation of it, which is that it was just a convenient story to cover up.
No, I mean, I think it was, you know, computers going missing, this, that, and the other. That's not my fault. On you know, that's out of my control, isn't it? That's
the man in charge there now is Sir Dave Brailsford. Is he the right man to lead this team forward, or should he go?
Well, I still think that, you know, what he's done for the sport and that, I still think that it will be a shame if he had to go when a lot of this is just, this is a report based on rumour and, you know, anonymous sources, and I think they've already admitted fault for those years, you know, in terms of record keeping and stuff, and I think once things are substantiated and if proven, then maybe he should go. But until that is, we can't just take this report as that's it, set in concrete. I mean, this has now become fact. That's it. You know, this is fact, and it's like
the lack of medical record keeping.
It's been 3 years.
That's fact.
That's what they can come up with. It would have nice to have been asked the question. I would have loved to have been asked the question. This allegation has been made for you. New evidence has come to light. Have you got any response on this, Bradley? I'd have just loved to have been asked that question, given the opportunity to respond to it. I got 5 wishy-washy questions about packages and other stuff that I knew nothing about. I mean, these are serious allegations that have, you know, larger impact on someone's life, and I should at least be given a fair trial and opportunity to be able to answer them.
And you haven't been given that, you don't?
Well, I haven't. Not by the report. No, I got 11th hour email last week. We'd like to give you 5 questions to answer.
You say if that's the worst they can come up with, then it's not the end of the world, but as it were. But you know, lack of medical record keeping. We've now got the Chris Froome situation. He could be, you know, the lead rider could be banned if he can't clear his name. Twice the level of salbutamol. It's hardly in isolation.
No.
Is it your story?
No, but I mean,
so that's why I asked whether Brailsford should go.
Well, I think they're going through a process at the moment. I think they should be at least allowed to go through that process. As they've said on a number of occasions, that should have been kept, you know, that came into the public light. That normally people get the opportunity to go through that without that being in the public domain. So I think that the least they deserve is to be able to go through this process, because again, that's not a nice thing to be accused of. I don't know enough medically whether that is a natural thing that can occur in your body or not. So I think they at least allow an opportunity to present their findings, or be able to. That's what this country is famous for. It's justice system and being able to do that.
He had a fair bit to say though, didn't he, Chris Froome, about TUEs? It was quite pointed what he was saying about you.
Yeah, but I think I'm always dubious of people in those positions. That I sat with you in 2013 on a Sky training camp talking about Lance Armstrong, and there's messages that, you know, you're being told. I'd love to talk freely as I've been able to talk today, and I think under the landscape at that time as the Tour de France winner and that, I don't think I've really felt like I spoke my mind, and Yeah, I always question what people say, especially under the current landscape in cycling, because I think a lot of the time people just tell you what they think the journalist wants to hear because they don't want the hassle. I just want to get on with my job tomorrow of racing this race. So
you're our greatest ever Olympian. You were the first Brit to win the Tour de France, described as a national treasure in the past. Do you feel all those achievements, your legacy has been permanently tainted as a result of all this, or can you recover?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen, doesn't it? I mean, it's I've now got a road of trying to have my say and be able to explain at least my side to things. I mean, one of the biggest things is not being able to speak the last year and a half. And in doing that, you leave people to write their own stories. And I want to put this thing to bed. I'll do more interviews this week if I have to. You know, I've got nothing to hide here. This is about me now being able to have my say and let people decide for themselves by actually just bringing a bit of balance back to this whole thing, because at the moment it's been so weighted and one-sided, and I just think that this needs a bit of balance and perspective here. I mean, it's this report today is a political report based on rumour, and you know, there's nothing to substantiate it. There's no, you know, who are these sources? Come out. If it's that, if you really feel that deep about it, you've got to go and tell the Houses of Parliament committee about it. Then go on record. You know, put your name to it, because it'll validate it. And where's the evidence? Show the evidence. Just quickly, this is serious. This is serious stuff.
When it comes to the Triumph-Sinaloa, Brad, some would say it's understandable. It's within the rules. The committee did not accuse you of breaking any rules. So if you did use it partly for performance, then some would say, so be it. It was just another marginal gain. Yeah. It was. You were doing nothing worse than gaming the system.
Yeah, but that's a lovely...
If you did do that, and you don't say you deny that, yeah, but had you done that, or had any cyclist done that, would that be breaking the rules, or would it be cheating? If you were using that kind of substance for performance enhancement as opposed to...
Well, apparently it would be, according to the people that have commented on it. And it's a lovely poetic story that ties in with this whole situation we've been in for the last 12 months of lost records, people trying to, you know, put stories down or make them disappear, or, you know, this, that and the other, and contradictions, and people supposed to... It makes a lovely story, but the reality is quite different. What if we didn't? You know, what if we didn't? What if it was all legitimate and there was medical need and all the, you know, we followed all the protocols, went to the specialists that would produce it, went to the UCI. They were the rules at the time. As the athlete, there was no playing of the system. I was doing my job as a professional in the sport that I love and continue to love and will continue to love to the end of the day, you know, till my dying days. It's not a sport that I would have abused or risked putting myself at jeopardy. I have every pride in what I achieved on my bike and continue to. I still have the jersey and the bike hanging up at home. It's not, you know, that for me, it's not a thing that I think, oh God, you know, I wish I'd never done that. No, I stand by it. You know, no rules were ever broken. I certainly didn't play the system. I certainly didn't cheat the system throughout my career. This wasn't something I'd done on a yearly basis. You know, whatever the target of, whether it's Paris-Roubaix, whether it's the hour record, whether it's the Olympic team pursuit. No, this was at the time of when it, you know. So
there are some asthma experts, Brad, who say that you would have to be severely ill with asthma, almost to the point of being hospitalised, to justify or warrant using a corticosteroid as powerful as Triumph-Sinaloa. So therefore, there will be many who will look at the fact that you did indeed take that drug, whether you say that it was purely for medical reasons or not, and put an asterisk next to that 2012 Tour de France victory. How do you feel about that?
But you just mentioned that Professor, what was he called? Yeah, for every Professor Libworth, there's another doctor who'll say the opposite to that. I've had people contacting me during this whole process saying this is ludicrous, this is bonkers. There's been a deliberate use of the language, powerful steroid. It's not a powerful steroid. These doctors are telling me that it's an anti-inflammatory drug, that it's not even ranked in the top 5 of steroids. You know, prednisolone is much higher, which is used for bee stings, etc., chest infections. And there's been a deliberate choice of language on these things. And that, you know, you have to be hospitalised. I mean, you're talking about elite athletes that are competing in the high mountains and this, that and the other. And trying to be 100% and bring yourself back to a level playing field when you've got asthma problems or suffering from allergies. And
but David Miller says it's incredibly strong.
yeah, David
and
Miller.
effective.
I mean, yeah, I mean, what can I say to that? I mean,
you can't sit here and say you didn't get a performance enhancement from it. I don't think it's possible for you to say that with any certainty.
well,
Regardless of whether you say that your
there.
intention was to
Yeah,
have it for medical reasons.
I think that's the key, intention.
But
I mean, whether there was or wasn't, I don't know. I can't sit here and say that. I won every bike race up to that point. I'd won every time trial that season, and I continued that pattern through the Tour de France. And it wasn't me coming out of the blue, and all of a sudden, where did that come from? This was me on an 18-month progression, working towards this objective. And this, this wasn't. I mean, intention. I think that's the key to it. Was there a performance enhancement? You tell me there was.
There might well have been, mightn't
there? There may well have been, yeah. But they were the rules at the time, and to treat this problem, that's what I was prescribed. I can't change the last 5 years.
So do you feel let down then by what you were advised to do?
I don't feel let down by what I was advised to do at that time. I think I've been let down since, in terms of the last 12, 15 months, what's happened, packages and the outcome of this report based on anonymous sources. I think the least I deserve through this now is some hard evidence. If that's the accusation, well, where's the evidence to support that? Come on, let's put it out there, because now I'm left here now. Well, that's the end of it. Report's over. You pick the pieces up, Jack, and get on with it. And I've got to now do that.
Shane Sutton's evidence, though, isn't it? He's a man from right within the team, a man who was almost like a father figure to you, saying that you used that drug unethically. And not only that, a few months ago he said that Team Sky they used it to get gains.
He didn't say that at the Houses of Parliament in December, did he?
He said it since.
Yeah, well, why? I don't know what his motivation is for that. I haven't spoken to him for a year, so I don't know.
Do you worry about what the UCI are going to do about this? I mean, do you sit there fearing that you might lose your Tour de France title?
But they were the rules at the time. They said I could take it. It was under their rules that they did at the time. They went to their panel whether I could be granted this TUE.
But they're going to look at this report and they're going to see in black and white that these MPs clearly believe that those TUEs were taken out to get a performance gain as well. And if that was the case, then they might take a view that...
But I can only go on the specialist report that I was given. Things prodded up my nose and this, that and the other, and it's... What can I say? I mean, that was their rules that they set at the time, and that was the application. If they didn't feel that it was, they could have denied it. They could have denied the application.
We've spoken to Josh Edmondson, Jonathan Tin and Locke. They both referred to unethical use of tramadol, very powerful painkiller. Doesn't relate to you, but did you witness anything like that at the time?
No, I used tramadol. I mean, I used it because I used it in training sometimes. I mean, it wasn't like that it's been described. You were allowed to use it at that time, and it wasn't, that it was being dished out on the bus like this big, powerful. I mean, it was... I mean, things like that is where it kind of blurs as well. People coming from all angles, and we're talking about one thing, and all of a sudden someone throws something else into the ring, and it just adds weight to this whole kind of thing. And the things that were going around at a certain period were just wild and way off the mark and completely out of context. And
you think it's a witch hunt now? It sounds like you think this is now.
Well, some things have been. I've not been able to get my head around some things. I was asked certain questions by a certain journalist for a certain newspaper about certain things, and back in the end of 2016, I was asked whether I'd missed a test or not, and I freely volunteered the information. Said I've never missed a test in all the years of whereabouts. I've never missed a test. I had a filing failure to my name. I didn't even have a strike. I had a filing failure for not putting the right details in on a long-haul flight back from the Tour of California in 2016. And that was just lack of information. I was on a long-haul flight. No, I didn't have a test, didn't miss a test or anything like that. The story that came out from that information, Wiggins in missed test blunder just 3 months before what equates to a missed test doping blunder. I mean, just that choice of language. It's like, how do you get a story like that from that? And then obviously, like Wiggins shuns Olympic parade or in the wake of all... I haven't been to an Olympic parade since 2004. I don't do them. I don't like all the adulation on stage with everyone else. And it's just, and it was just constant story after story. Let's see how much more we can add. Let's how much, and that sprung to me as this had as much weight to this whole package thing to discredit him at any opportunity along the thing, and that was what, that's a witch hunt, because there's nothing to substantiate that. And there's an investigation on, so obviously I can't speak as well, so it's just week after week after week.
Many will watch this, Brad, and believe what you say, and they'll have faith. Others won't believe what you've said, and they won't believe what Team Sky say either.
No.
How does that make you feel to know that many have had enough when it comes to trusting
Team
Team Sky?
But I mean, that's the sport we're in. I mean, it's the most scrutinised sport in the world.
But Team Sky was meant to be the team that provided hope, credibility, trust, and there's not much left.
Well, no, but I mean, I can't control that. I can't control what people are going to think, what they're not going to think. All I can tell you is that from my point of view, what I experienced, and I'm not in control of what people are going to make of it. You've also got to remember that some people, whatever you do, is not going to be good enough. I think it's, yeah, I just don't know anymore in this sport. It's you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. I don't know.
Final question, if I may. You've mentioned your family. Well, I've heard this before from sports people in your position. Remember Lance Armstrong saying one of the things he worried about most was his kids. Is that something which preys on your mind as well?
Constantly. Yeah, it's all that matters really in this. You know what I mean? I'll get a flogging. I don't mind getting a flogging. I'll get, if it'll help, we go back to Henry VIII times and I'll go and stick my head in one of them things and get the people to flog me. But it's the kids. But then it's not up to them. And obviously, what's reported, people see what they've been reported. So then they get a hammering at school and that, and it's disgusting, and it's disgusting to witness it. And it's, what do you do about it? Do you know what I mean? It's
that's actually happened, is it? They're getting stick and.
Yeah, but it's just it's that whole thing. People. This has been going on for such a long time now, and you just look at the papers today. I mean, it says one thing, but that's not exactly it. And
you're tired of it, it seems to me.
Well, I would have liked a better process, because that's it now. As I say, this report's that's it. That's fact now, and they'll move on to something else now. These bunch of MPs, and it would have been nice to be able to comment on it, on the allegations.